Hey guys, and welcome to Little Black But 91. We're talking to you guys about Ready to Love, and we're dealing with Shiloh, and dealing with the fact that she sniped, a good man's reputation, which was Phil. And you know what? I said I was gonna wait until the episode came out before I spoke on the issue, because I wanted to make sure that I had all the facts ready first and foremost, because the subject matter was to do with DV, domestic violence. So before we go any further, make sure you like, share, subscribe, click on the bell button for notification of uploads. We appreciate you guys. Stay locked and stay loaded. I know you got another week of me being behind the screen, but I will be back hopefully by the next week. All right, cool. So let's talk a little bit about Ready to Love. Don't forget as well, you got the minerals. Stay hydrated, baby. Let's talk a little bit about this episode. So the reason why I want to talk about this is because I think, I think Shiloh is a great, cool person, right? But she sniped a man's reputation. And you know what? There are so many women out there that don't get believed for domestic violence, that my first and foremost, point of call is when a woman says she's been assaulted, I'm going to believe her, right? Because the stats do show that women are the greater victim of this particular assault, right? And even when it comes to even being perpetrators, men are one of the higher perpetrators, even amongst themselves. So, I'm inclined to believe. Now, here's the issue I have with this particular episode. I said it from the last episode, and actually I did a video and I didn't actually release it because I didn't think it was sensitive enough. But the language that Shiloh was using, I could tell that everything she had said wasn't necessarily the full truth of what we're seeing right in front of us, right? For instance, when you talk about the fact that he picked you up, he didn't strike you, he didn't hit you, he followed you down an alley to pick you up because you were, and they put, obviously he had drunk one and she had been drinking. That was giving us a little bit of context in terms of the situation, right? And I knew straight away, I said, this is not going to turn out to be a DV situation, because first and foremost, the language she's used, he hasn't struck her, he hasn't hit her, and don't get it twisted, some people can restrain you, but when we're talking about really domestic violence here, yes, it can start that way, but actually before it gets to that point, oftentimes it starts emotionally. So one doesn't just go from 0 to 100 if they know you already, right? Most times it doesn't go to there. So because she hasn't reported any emotional abuse from Phil, I'm inclined to go, why would it straight away go to domestic violence and him just grabbing her and just physically manhandling her, right? So that made me think, okay, cool. All right, if I take that line of deduction, okay, situation at hand, they're having a conversation about a relationship, he's not giving the answer she wants, she runs down the alley, he picks her up when she says, don't touch me, right? Cool. I mean, these situations can happen. And my second thing was that she spoke about the fact that she was triggered. And she spoke about the fact that she was triggered, she's had past incidents. And this is what the key point is. Her triggered trauma, which, by the way, so many of us have trauma that we have unresolved. I'm not looking at her differently because she's an intimacy coach and she doesn't. Listen, everybody's got some unresolved trauma, more than likely, right, that we're trying to work through. Nobody's perfect. Just because she's an intimacy coach does not mean that she also doesn't have any of these traumas, okay? But the difficulty here, again, I'm using this word difficulty all the time. The problem I see here is the fact that her trauma has come out now and is now being weaponized. That's the problem I have. She's now weaponized the trauma. And I say that in the sense of, how does someone hurt you emotionally but not physically, yet you describe a physical attack? I want you to understand that. How is it you keep describing to not only Tommy, but you described it to Phil, you described it to the ladies, you described a physical altercation, but you were hurt emotionally? Right? And you keep leading with the physical altercation, then confusing people by saying, actually, I was hurt emotionally. Well, then why do you keep talking about the physical altercation? Why do you keep talking about the fact that he physically restrained you? Right? And the truth of the matter is, the reason why she keeps talking about the emotional aspect is because that's where the damage has actually been done. It wasn't picking up. The picking up might have triggered her trauma, which, by the way, he's not responsible for. right? Now, unless he knows that you have this trauma, unless he knows that specifically this kind of behavior is going to lead to you being traumatized, then he didn't know. So you don't hold him accountable for something where he thinks he's trying to preserve you and keep you safe, and then present the information like it's a DV situation, right? Then you call a meeting with Tommy, which, by the way, I don't know why the network did, but then I get it, because women, like I said, women are the majority of the time when it comes to victim stats, they're quite high. So of course, when a woman says she's been pretty much assaulted, which is how she's telling the story, which is where my problem lies, right? Telling the story says she's been assaulted, they're gonna have to call a meeting, right? They're gonna have to call a meeting. And I said about this in my video about the double standards between Zadia and Dante, and then Phil and Shiloh, right? So my thing here is that with Shiloh, that she's presenting this information in such a way that it is going to destroy reputations. Yeah, she presented it in a certain way, and she still is. Even when she went to the girls, she tried to do it again. My thoughts felt a different way because, when he picked me up in the alleyway. Baby, tell the whole story. 4 a.m. in the morning, walking down an alley that you probably shouldn't be walking down in DC. And we all know, we have this, I'm from the UK. There are streets in the UK and areas and postcodes that I know that if a girl that I know, I care about, is walking down there. In fact, it's not even just that. Women even don't like even walking in certain areas in UK. Right, and I'm sure the same for America. Don't like walking down dark alleys and dark places where they can easily be assaulted. They don't want to even walk down there. So the mere fact that she walked down there tells me that she was inebriated to a point where she couldn't even fathom that where you're walking to is a very dangerous place. Right? So for him to prevent anything else happening now, he picks her up, tries to put her back in the car. Now, listen, hey, she said she don't want to be touched. I totally get it. And she has every right to say that. We're not talking about that. We're talking about the context of the situation. As you sobered up, Shiloh, as you sobered up, this is why I said it's manipulative, because as you sobered up, you should weigh up what happened. Right? But she's still hurt from the fact that he rejected her, or at least didn't give her the answer that she wanted, which was that she wanted him to want her. That now the response to the picking up becomes an issue. It becomes a bigger issue. Not that it was already an issue, becomes a bigger issue. I told you to leave me alone, blah, blah, blah. And I'll tell you why it is an issue. Because when you go later on in the conversation, she says, "Why couldn't you have followed me?" Well, you told me to leave you alone, so why would you want him to follow you? Right? So the issue isn't the picking up. The issue is that she was triggered by the picking up because it triggered something in her. Then you shouldn't be late. You shouldn't then put your whole dumping of emotional feeling and pain onto Phil when you're triggered. You are personally triggered. And when you're sober, you should be able to now go back and say, actually, Phil, do you know what? I was triggered in a lot of these things, and it's not your fault in this particular aspect, right? She has every right to say, listen, when I say don't touch me. But like I said, listen to the confusion, right? Because now you're saying later on in the conversation, well, why can't you just walk down the alley with me? But you told me to leave you alone because you needed space to figure this out, right? Now, hey, Phil's gonna learn a big lesson from this, But again, if it's not communicated her trauma, how is he supposed to know, right? So I don't like the way that Shiloh presented this because she knows, how this is gonna look, right? She knows how it's gonna look. And then calling for a meeting with Tommy, or whoever called a meeting with Tommy, it's gonna look even worse, right? And the attitude came in as well at the very beginning. When you listen to the conversation, she's like, I want to hear from what Phil's gonna say. Why? And that energy, I saw that same energy of I want to see what Phil's going to say, is the same same cutthroat, dry energy she used with cutting across to see us. She knew exactly what she was doing when she changed the subject. This is what I did a video on this. I did a video on this. All right, and it's. Look, but I don't know, man. It's just crazy, man. It's crazy. It's a lot. 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 You know, and I think for this situation as well, I think Shiloh has to really assess what her true issue is here with Phil. I'm describing my own where I'm saying that's what I'm diagnosing, but I think she needs to take accountability here. If she hasn't done it already, I think she needs to be apologizing to Phil. I think she needs to be saying sorry, because you've blasted this man on national television. The brother, you can see by his body language, he's over it, done, doesn't want to be there, doesn't want to have the conversation, doesn't want to be accused of this. And it's an accusation which is wild. Because, you see, and she keeps on covering it with the whole, I'm not saying he's physically harmed me, but you're saying he's emotionally harmed you. And then describe the physical altercation. That's problematic. Right, so we'll talk a little bit more in another review where I kind of break down the other conversations that they had, but I wanted to present to that thing. I don't know if you guys agree. Look, a man should never be putting his hands on a woman. I think context is so important, though. You're walking down a dark ass alley at 4 a.m. in DC, okay, only major city, by the way, if any major city, at 4 a.m. trouble is being there. Right, and I'll discuss this maybe in part 2 of the video when I discuss about his response. But there's a part 2. I mean, but there's a part that is obviously him thinking about ahead the dangers that are going to be there, and then trying to negate that, and then that causing the triggering. But then the triggering now causing her to try and tell a story in a certain way. So, hey, let me know your thoughts down below. Like, share, subscribe, click on the bell button for notification of uploads. I appreciate it, guys. Stay locked, stay loaded.